Hi, everybody. Good evening and happy Tuesday. Time for another round or dose of good nature. We've got some fun stuff lined up tonight. Let's start, as we have the last few weeks, let's start with some show and tells. And this week comes courtesy of Kay, who left a most delightful package on the front step here of Casa Auto the other day. A coffee table book for the coffee table that is just out of view here. This is called On Ancient Wings. I believe Kay might have mentioned it during our meeting. Was it last week or the week before? Super good. Now, I have to say, I have not read the whole thing, but it does have one of my very favorite features of big books like that, and that is gorgeous photographs. The question arose last week of a feather that Kay had. Could it looks similar to the feather that we were looking at, that, by the way, is on its way tomorrow to the Field Museum. Thank you very much, Bob. We're going to get a definitive answer on whether that giant feather is a turkey vulture, a bald eagle, or something else we haven't thought of. And it relates to this feather, which Kay dropped off as part of this package. Look at this picture here. Now, this shows a sandhill crane. Sandhill crane, and it's I'm gonna guess it's down on the nest. It's got its little colt with it there, right there. And look at the rusty brown color of the wings. There, let's move it there so you can see. So those wings are definitely brown, which is definitely not the color that a sandhill cranes normally are. So they are stained with mud from the area in which the birds are nesting. So Kay did include in that package a little reminder, little souvenir that a sandhill crane left behind. This feather, so I did a little experimenting, because I thought, how do you tell if a feather is stained or if it's just the color that it is? And I'm hoping this will show up. It kind of is. So I took your feather, Kay, and I got a wet paper towel, and water, plain old water. It is a solvent. I rubbed the feather here, and it did cause some difference in the coloration right here. It's darker here, it's lighter here. The sharp line wasn't there before. So I'm kind of thinking I moved some of the stain with, now I looked on, it was a white paper towel, and I didn't really see anything on the paper towel. I thought, well, maybe this is just how all feathers behave. So I got another feather. This is from one of several feathers I have from my dearly departed parrot, Tom. And I rubbed it as well with another white paper towel. Again, nothing came off. And I kind of, this feather did not knit back together. The little barbules on this feather did not knit back together nearly as nicely as the sandhill crane feather did. But there's no real discernible change in the color. I did it on this side here. You can see it's still a pretty uniform blue. And here, it looks changed. There's a definite line there that wasn't there before when I rubbed the paper towel there. So just another, I don't know. I also actually, I looked at this underneath a loop, and the the scope that I have in the other room to see if I could see any grains or anything like that, any sign of material on top of the barbules. And none of my magnification was high enough to indicate anything like that. But I think the water test shows or confirms that this is a stained feather, as opposed to having this be the native color of the feather. Now the trick is going to be where to put it for the next 50 minutes or so that none of the furry roommates decide that these would be good snacks. I think I'll put them here. All right. So Kate, thank you very much for these lovely gifts. I'll set that aside for now. And go on to the next thing. So got a few screen shares to share, or a screen share to share before we launch into our slides for tonight. And this was something that I just thought I got a kick out of it, and I thought you might too. Boy, and you'd think that I was just brand new to this Zoom thing, but once again, I have to look at where I need to go to share this file. All right, there we go. Share. We're just going to go to the screen. Are we sharing? Yes, we are. All right, that is actually something else I'm working on. Pretty picture though, isn't it? That's in it's in Maine. All right, let's go here. This was an email, and some of you may have already seen this if you belong to the email list for Wasco Nursery. But they sent out this announcement that Gravlingsommar is here. My Swedish chef is pretty good. Remember him from the Muppets? But when it comes to actual Swedish, it's not so good. So Gravlingsommar. I don't know if we've got any Swedes out there. You're welcome to jump in and help me out with that. But anyway, it means badger summer. And the Swedes call it badger summer because badgers actively stock up on winter food during this time. In England, they call it goose summer. It's a period of unseasonably warm weather after the first killing frost of the year. It doesn't happen every year, but when it does, it's a blessing to have winter delayed, if only for a few weeks, whatever you call it. Yay. I don't know. I find it a little unsettling that it's still this warm, this late. I was reminiscing with a group earlier today. We had a rule in the house when I was growing up that we could not play any Christmas music till there was an inch of snow on the ground. But I know that every year by Thanksgiving, we were playing Christmas music. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do that this year. Yeah, there's lots of ways you can look at the current weather that we're having, but I love the idea of a badger summer. In fact, I was talking badgers earlier today too. I think we might be doing some programming next spring with our Learn from the Expert series on badgers, because they're showing up with some regularity in the area. Anyway, happy badger summer, everybody. Let's see, from here, let's go ahead. Let's see, yeah, let's swing on over here to our slides for today. And this is actually, these were a couple of photos that John and Bobby sent. This is a great magazine that covers I'm drawing a blank on the full name of it, but it covers the upper Mississippi River. It's a neat magazine to subscribe to if you are at all interested in that part of the country. And John sent me Big River. There we go. Big River magazine, not Great River. Great River Road, Big River magazine. John had seen this article about the bowfin, and he commented on what a coincidence it was, because he had a buddy catch a bowfin in out of Lake Michigan. They are an unusual fish, aren't they? But you know, the attitudes on these fish have really changed over time. People are starting to recognize that every species, every organism does have value. It's all part of that bigger picture, the way things link together. And but this fish also struck a chord with me. We can go back here and look at the article too, that you know praises the bowfin and other fish that were called rough fish. And it's many anglers were angered by piles of discarded native rough fish on the banks of some waters, in a widely seen video of ice anglers spearing dozens of large gar and then leaving them to rot on the ice. This was the attitude back in the day. And I actually come from a family that used to do this when my dad, my uncles, when they would go up north, when they'd go up to the UP, they had certain game fish that they were fishing for. They love the thrill of reeling in a northern pike, but as far as eating goes, they always preferred the panfish, the bluegills and the crappies, and then also the smallmouth bass. And some of these other these what they call rough fish, they would just throw on the bank, and they really do have a spot in the ecosystem down there. A lot of them feed down on the bottom, but that's an important niche to fill as well. Well, there was a story in our family that goes back to the early 1950s. My folks weren't married yet, but my mom had accompanied my dad's family up to the Upper Peninsula. And I forget if it was my dad or my Uncle Bill, but one of them caught a big old bowfin, which back then they were called dogfish. And my mom was kind of impressed at how big this fish was, and was kind of horrified then when my uncle hit it, with a club and threw it in the reeds. And she said, well, why in the world would you throw away a big fish like that? And my uncle said, well, us, manly men, that fish just wasn't big enough. So, and, so then they all had a good laugh at my dear old mom's expense that, she didn't know, a dogfish from, say, a northern pike. But yeah, they are out there. There's other fish that article mentioned gar as well. Oops, what did I do here? Hit the wrong one. But it's they're neat fish. They're not commonly seen fish, but they are all part of the bigger picture, and they all have a role to fulfill. So thanks for sending those pictures in, John. Appreciate that. And from here, Mike, I've got to thank you for this. We had a conversation the other day about people's, I'm going to move this block out of the way here so you can see what that says at the top. Animals that prompt fear and disgust. And this kind of struck a chord with me because of the classes I took when I did the career change to this field back in the late 90s and early 2000s, through the NIU Outdoor Ed program with Cliff Knapp and other fine instructors. I had to write I forget if it was a paper or if we presented a poster or did a presentation, but it was on what were called barriers to outdoor education. And over the years, many people have tried to figure out, people who love the outdoors are always trying to figure out why people who don't love the other outdoors feel the way they do. And many polls and surveys have been done, and repeatedly, when you look at what makes people afraid to go outside or are disgusted by going outside, spiders always rank very highly, as do snakes. And in some surveys, spiders are number one and snakes are number two, and in other surveys, spiders are number one and snakes are number one and spiders are number two. Well, I love this this graph because there's the mean disgust rating there on the is that the y-axis, and the mean fear rating going across the bottom here. So people are afraid of cats and red pandas, which I believe are endangered. Dogs, bulls, which I can see getting chased by a bull. I think that was one of those things that as a kid, you know, I always thought, boy, you know, I'm going to have to be on the lookout for bulls because, you know, TV land, cartoons, there's a lot of bulls that chase a lot of people. Same thing with quicksand. And I have to say, I have yet to fall victim to either one of those, knock on wood. But then we've got the disgust rating. We've got things like snails, rats, frogs. You know, I'm always surprised when someone says that they're kind of grossed out by frogs. Maybe it's because of the perceived sliminess of the skin. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. People don't like things that hop. Now, things up here, I kind of get some of our famous parasites, lice, and tapeworms, roundworms, maggots. I kind of get that. They too have jobs to do. It's just that they operate more in the realm of disgusting jobs, dirty jobs, as Mike Rowe would call them. Wasps. There's just all sorts of creatures that may prevent people from fully embracing the outdoors. A lot of this can be overcome once you meet a nice snake or spider. Although, curiously enough, if we get back to that whole snake and spider thing, it seems in the education, the outreach that we've done at the Park District, there's an awful lot of people who are okay with snakes, but they can't stand spiders, or they're okay with spiders, but they can't stand snakes. And sometimes there's those people that don't like either one. And then there's weirdos like me that happen to think both of them are really cool. So anyway, Mike, thanks for sharing this cool graph. Another way to look at the animals around us. And from here, let's go right into one of those animals that prompt fear and disgust. Maybe equal doses of both. This was the scene outside of the Potawatomi Community Center the other night. I stopped by there to pick some things up, and with our new darkness here, I think it was only about 5 or 5:30, but the outside lights were on, and I thought, my goodness, what has that spider captured in its web? Again, folks, this is November, and we still have thriving outdoor spider population. Well, the more I looked at this video, and I apologize, there was a lot of flopping going on here, and some spiders, now that was kind of breezy, and the breeze did pick up there, so I think some of this web movement is attributable to that. But spiders will also sometimes bounce in their webs to create a diversion or a seeming sense of making themselves look bigger and scarier than they actually are by moving around a lot. So there might have been a little bit of that going on here too. But I thought at first the spider was eating, but I think we have 2 spiders here that are working on making more spiders. There's an awful lot of legs there. And as I moved in closer, the spider, the more yellowish or golden colored spider did make a break for it and go up against the top of the light fixture. There's a locust leaf there, but there's the spider. This would be the female. I think I'm guessing it was a male spider. I don't think this was a fight for dominance or anything like that. I think it was a mating that was going on. These are light fixtures that are maybe 30 inches tall. They line the walkway going into the Potawatomi Community Center. But I was just absolutely astounded at how much spider activity there was last week on, I think it was just a week ago, November, let's see, would have been November 8th. It was last Wednesday. Look at all these webs. And there were still spiders moving in them. Really, really interesting weather that we're having these days. Now, speaking of spiders, this is not a local spider. These pictures were sent, and there's 4 of them here. These are from this year. This shows the underside of the spider we know as the banana spider, the black and yellow spider, the garden spider. The Argiope orontia is the scientific name. This is the underside of this big girl. And here's the more recognizable topside or dorsal view. So these are pictures that were taken recently this year. And then these are pictures from last year. This one, this is that spider, last year's spider being relocated. There's an email that goes along with that. Let's see, how can I do this here? I'm gonna stop the share for a second so I don't reveal any email addresses or anything here. But this is an email that came in over the weekend, came in on Sunday afternoon. Hi, with a waving emoji. My name is Mary, and I live in Wichita Falls, Wichita Falls, Texas. Last fall, I made friends with a female zipper spider, to my mother's horror, that had found a home in our herb pot. We let her stay until she had hung up her egg sac. That was my mom's final straw. I relocated her, and by her, we're talking about the spider, not the mom, relocated her and her eggs to the trees behind our house and said my goodbyes. I thought that was it, but lo and behold, my mom walked out this morning and saw a 3-inch female zipper spider in the exact same spot. I was thrilled, she was not. Again, disgust, fear. Anyway, we are wondering if it could be one of her babies. I don't think it's the mother because they don't live longer than a year, right? Could it be possible for them to have some sort of homing instinct, or is this just a funny coincidence? Well, let's go back to those photos again. This is an interesting topic, and I think we have a lot to learn. I think we are discovering a lot about our spider friends. All right, I gotta find you guys here. There you are. All right, let's go back to our screen share and we'll go back to those photos. So these were the photos from last year. Let's get this box out of here. Those are our local spiders. Okay, so here's our Wichita Falls, Texas spider from this year. So do spiders live more than a year? More and more, we're finding out that yes, there are a lot of spiders that can survive over the winter. I looked up the climate of Wichita Falls. It is in the northern part of Texas. And the average, the coldest temperatures in winter seem to be right around freezing. Now, if one of these spiders could find a place of shelter, there's a very good possibility that this, instead of being one of the offspring, that this could actually be the same spider that's come back. But there's no way of knowing that for sure without having marked her in some way. There's actually I was reading a study. I thought, how do you tag a spider? Well, with a tiny little paper tag and a tiny little bit of super glue. Similar to the way that monarchs are tagged, that the monarch tag is actually bigger than the tag that you would put on a spider, tiny little piece of paper. That was a study that was done actually in northwestern Illinois, in an area that had become quote unquote infested with brown recluse spiders. But anyway, I don't know that Mary, I have not heard back from her since I proposed she maybe try a mark and recapture study with her spiders. But that's the one way to know for sure whether you're seeing the same creature or not. So it's possible that this is the same female from last year and she's returned. It's also possible that another spider has come in. If there's something very attractive about this herb pot, and I'm wondering if it maybe is near, if there's whatever is growing in the herb pot is attracting a lot of insects. Maybe there's a lot of pollinators coming in. It could be that it's a just a good place to build a home. So a lot of spiders could be attracted to it, and it was just a coincidence that they both happened to be Argiops. But it was an interesting question. I'm waiting to hear back from her to see what, if anything, they're going to do about trying to mark the spider to see if she returns another year. But the research does indicate that these spiders, the Argiops, if they can survive the winter, the females are capable of living multiple years after reaching maturity. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I'm sure Mary in Wichita Falls, I bet her mom was not so happy to hear that news. All right, let's go on. As I mentioned before, the really big feather from last week is going down to the Field Museum tomorrow. I took this. Normally I have a little measuring tape in my purse with me, and a few weeks ago I got really soaked in a rainstorm, and I emptied the bag, and not all the pieces have been put back in yet. So the measuring tape that has the metric ruler on it is kind of AWOL right now. So this I took this picture last week. That these are 1 foot square tiles over at the Baker Community Center. So here's 12 inches, and then here's probably another 4 or so. So the really big feather. Promise you we will get an answer on that next week. Fingers crossed. So speaking of feathers, this is a retention pond in the Fisher Farms subdivision, which is behind local folks. It's behind the Geneva Commons shopping area over off of Randall Road. And there is a individual who lives in that subdivision who is convinced that this pond is home to a nutria. Now, if we go over here, let's look up nutria. They're an interesting but also highly invasive animal. Let's everybody see that there. They've got a snout like a beaver. In fact, let's go ahead and visit. Maybe I can get you a larger image here. Well, I guess that's going to have to do. So they've got the orange teeth like we see in our beavers. However, their tail is thin, much more similar to that of a muskrat. They've got white whiskers too, which is another thing to look for. The individual who saw this animal, I'm trying to figure out if what he saw was a big muskrat or a beaver. I'm pretty sure it's not a nutria. These are animals that were brought to the United States as another source for fur. But we've got some really good fur-bearing animals here already. We've got mink, we've got muskrats, we've got beavers. Nutria have succeeded in really messing up very a lot of different areas where they have been introduced. I know Louisiana has had a big problem with them for a long time. The concern here in Illinois is that they are, a few have been found. I think they've all been roadkill. There might be one or two that they've captured or have seen on game cameras. They've all been spotted in southern Illinois. This is an animal that is, it's a South American mammal. So to see it far north like this would be a little unusual. But, you know, when somebody says they've seen something, I want to go see if I can see it too. So I've spent gone over there 3 times now looking for the nutria. Haven't seen it, nor have I seen, my goodness, what are we looking at here? I have not seen any muskrats or beavers either. Now, the person who saw the nutria, reported the nutria, was surprised to learn that beavers can get quite large. So I don't know if that was the person's way of hedging a little bit on, you know, maybe what they saw was a beaver. The pond where this activity is occurring, it's pretty typical where we see certainly muskrats and sometimes beavers. It's fed by, there's at least 2 storm drains that release into this pond. And as we've learned, muskrats and beavers, and maybe nutrias too, if they were to be in the area, they use those storm drains as conduits to move between, move from one pond to the next. Saves them exposure to the elements. It also saves them from getting run over. Now, the first time I went to this pond, and that's where this picture comes in. This pond was full of migratory Canada geese, and we can tell they're migratory because they're extremely skittish around people. Our local geese, when humans show up, they kind of give us a little glance to see if we might be bearing any treats for them. And unless we, you know, really severely harass the geese, they are not going to even really want to move out of our way. The migratory geese are much less used to humans, and you don't have to get very close to them, but they'll spook and they take off. Seeing this quantity of down, though, kind of makes me think that maybe there were some geese here over the summertime too. Our resident geese were hanging out here. Again, I have not spent a lot of time at this pond until the last week, but Canada geese, actually a lot of our waterfowl, when they molt their feathers in the summertime, they do this after they have raised their young up to a certain size. The young aren't really fully independent yet. They're still hanging out with mom and dad, but parents go into a molt that it's not complete to where they're featherless. They still have some feathers, but they lose so many feathers, they're actually flightless. So they retreat to areas where they feel safe, and then you just find feathers everywhere. Well, this pond looks like there's, you know, like there's snow, and it was so neat to see these bits of down just waving in the breeze. The whole bank was coated with goose down and fish. So the first time I was there, there was a great blue heron, and I would imagine the heron is responsible for the fish on the bank, and I can get maybe one, you know, it caught one more than it really wanted, so it left it there. But there were actually 3 fish. There were 2 crappies and this bluegill, and these were nice sized fish. I should have. I didn't have my lip balm with me. I should have put something though next to them so you could see, but these were bigger than my hand. So they were good sized panfish. And we know this is a bluegill and not a sunfish by the spot here on the gill. On a bluegill, it's solid, dark like this. On a sunfish, which I believe they're same genus, different species. They're in the sunfish. They're all in the sunfish family. There's no, the sunfish will have a border, a lighter colored, I think reddish margin around this spot on the gill. So big old bluegills, two big old crappies. They all had little injuries here. But I just, that was kind of a mystery too. And I don't know why, but certainly something to note. Nutria don't eat fish. They are rodents that eat a lot of plant material. Interestingly enough, on the opposite bank of this pond, there were a couple big oak trees and there was a lot of acorns on the ground. And I wonder if whatever this animal was, the first time it was spotted, it was near one of those trees. I wonder if it had come up to feast on some of those acorns. That we're still seeing in this big mast year that we're in the midst of. Anyway, if there is more to report about the nutria in Geneva, you guys are going to be the first to know. Now, speaking of oak trees, this is over at Mount St. Mary's Park, and I thought it was a interesting little phenomenon. The mast year continues. A lot of the nuts, more flavorful or tastier nuts, are disappearing. This tree, though, still has a huge quantity of nuts underneath it. Now, I'm not a dendrologist. I sometimes don't get the finer points of tree ID. This is, though, an oak in the red oak grouping of trees. It's got pointed lobes. If we zoom in, I'm going to move this box down to the bottom here. If we zoom in on these leaves, you can see that they end in points. Over here you can see too. If they were rounded lobes, then they would be part of the white oak grouping of oak trees. Besides white oaks, there's swamp white oaks, there's bur oaks. In the red oak side of things with the pointy leaves, we've got red oaks, black oaks, pin oaks. And this being Mount St. Mary's Park, we've got some oaks that we wouldn't normally expect to see here at all. There's a live oak that's been planted in the what's called the arboretum portion of Mount St. Mary. So this might not be just our run-of-the-mill red oak. The bark kind of reminds me of a red oak. Red oak bark has what we refer to as ski tracks. So see how there's these vertical markings going up and down the trunk. Red oak acorns have more tannins in them, so they're more bitter. When Native Americans harvest red oak acorns, they soak them for a long time to get those tannins to leach out. And when squirrels harvest red oak acorns, they bury them for longer amounts of time. That's another amazing thing that squirrel brains can do. They know which ones they can eat right away and which ones they have to let sit for a while. And I was just really surprised at the amount. Here we can see a pointy oak leaf too, at the quantity of these oak acorns that remained on the ground. This was just last Saturday. Look at them all there. And these two, I looked because I thought, wow, maybe there's a huge infestation of acorn weevils here. And I looked, and these are all intact. I cracked one open. The meat looked solid. There wasn't any sign of it being fed on by a weevil larva. There's just that many extra acorns this year. And of course, other things that are happening at this time of year, something we always look forward to is the cherry blossoms of the witch hazel. Now here, this angle shows not just the blossom. So this is the fall blooming witch hazel. There is a spring blooming witch hazel as well that occurs further south and east of here. This is the fall blooming witch hazel is what we would expect to have in this area. I've been meaning to get over and boy, every night, the last few nights, I've had something else I've had to do. I wanted to go over because I thought this weather would be ideal to see, try and get a look at the moths, the winter moths that pollinate these fall blooms on the witch hazel. This shows these were last year's blooms that were pollinated and they turned into seeds. The seed capsule on a witch hazel is kind of how would you say it's an explosive seed dispersal mechanism that happens. These capsules burst open and they fling forth 2 seeds. You can see here the capsule is divided into 2 sides, and there's a little black seed that sits inside each one of those. I had brought some capsules, and we might have talked about this last year. I brought some capsules in last year, and I thought, how cool would it be to be able to have a time-lapse video showing the capsule opening up. So I set the capsule and my phone up, and nothing happened. I decided, well, gee whiz, maybe the capsule I picked was a dud. So I shut the operation down after a few days, and it popped open. I did find one of the 2 seeds. I don't know what happened to the other one, but it did pop open. This is why when witch hazel is growing, wherever witch hazel is growing, we tend to see sort of a tangle of bushes that arise because of the way they fling those seeds. Here's another look at the blossom itself. Here's another seed capsule head, but these blooms here just waiting for a winter moth to come along and move some of that pollen around. So keep your eyes open for these. There's along the Fox River Trail, there are different places like on the west side between Fabian and Wilson Street as you walk between Fabian Forest Preserve and downtown Batavia. There's a few along the path there. We actually have some growing in the native plant garden behind Potawatomi Park. So if you think you're seeing blossoms in this late part of the year, you're not crazy. It's just the witch hazel that's coming to bloom. So I think I think we're at the end already for tonight. I'm going to stop the share. Before I forget, next week, and I'll try to remember to promote this to our King County Certified Naturalists too. Next week, we are going to have a very special edition of the Good Natured Hour. Some of you might remember our friend Allison Kupar. She's going to be coming back into town. She works for the somewhat ambiguous an unnamed large government agency, but it's always fun when Allison comes to town. She actually texted me the other day to say that she'll be in for the holiday next week and want to know if she could be a guest. So I said, absolutely. Last year, she had told us about her duties as a wild on the fire crews out west. She was at that time working in Wyoming. Well, since then, she has been relocated as part of her job to Northwest Colorado. Absolutely gorgeous area. Lots of wildlife, very few people. Seems ideal. So next week, if you're at all able, I know it is the holiday week, and if you're traveling and you miss it, we will be recording that session too, but Allison will be our special guest. So I wanted to make sure I remembered to mention that. All right, let's click. We got
and don't forget that you will be at the Batavia Library on Thursday for Book Between Bites.
Oh, and yes, I will be at the Batavia Library on Thursday for Books Between Bites. Thank you very much. Yes, at noon. I'm going to be talking about gosh, I had it right here. I must have moved it. we're going to be talking about the book We Took to the Woods by Louise Dickinson Rich. She has a wonderful way with words. This woman just cracks me up. I wished I could have met her because so many of the thoughts that she has match some of the thoughts I have in my head. I just recently learned, because part of Books Between Bites, it's not just doing like a book review, it's talking about what the book means to you, and also why someone might want to read it, and a little bit about the author. I learned that Louise, as a child, had her mom sew pockets on her dresses because she carried around so many things. That really resonated with me because I'm a big pocket freak too. So yeah, if you're at all able, if you're in the area, it's a free program. There's no registration required. Just go to the Batavia Library a little bit before noon because the program starts at 12 o'clock. Thanks for that reminder. Didn't this person think they saw it last year? This seems familiar. Did someone get a look at this? Maybe it was you, Pam. Oh gosh, Meredith, I am so bad with chats. What were we talking about at that time? Was this the nutria? Because it is that what we were talking about, the nutria?
Yeah, I think we talked about it last year, and some woman in her pond, and I could have sworn you went out there.
I don't remember going on a nutria call. I've gone after badgers, and I'm just a sucker. If somebody says they think they saw something, even if it turns out to be not what they thought, I always like to go and look. This particular area, this was a new actually, this person kind of regularly calls Good Natured World Headquarters with sightings of things, and sometimes they pan out. There was one instance though where the person thought they saw Bohemian waxwings, but they were cedar waxwings, so they're in the neighborhood but not quite. So nutria, muskrat. It was interesting, some of the comments. So they forwarded to me some of the there's a neighborhood. I don't think it's next door. I think it's an actual Facebook group. And there was a comment about, I noticed this large thing and I thought it was probably an otter. An otter. But there's just that lack of connection with their surroundings, because it's actually, I have a friend that lives over there and she says the same thing. Oh, otter, muskrat, whatever. But yeah, I'll have to think on that, because I have gone out to look at unusual things, but this is the first one for that area and that this particular individual. But keep you posted on it. Animals that prompt fear and disgust. Yes, ticks. Oh boy, Phil, you had a friendly dog tick, huh? Yeah, and this, I'm actually kind of surprised. I picked up 2 ticks. They were the deer ticks. When was it? It was the same week that I found the hen of the woods mushroom. I had 2 deer ticks on me then, and they do. There usually is a little spike in their activity right before the cold weather sets in. They want to get that last good feed in before the going gets rough. So yeah, I maybe I'll have to amend that, because yeah, you'd think ticks would be, especially with all the press they've been getting with the diseases they carry and the number of just here in Illinois, the new species that we're seeing. The Lone Star ticks are up this far now, and the Gulf Coast ticks are starting to get a foothold. So yeah, I think you're right, Phil. We do need to make a little amendment there. And yeah, thanks, Kay. Yeah, ticks are now, and I've taken some grief for this, but I will say that ticks are absolutely, they are exquisitely adapted to their job. They are able to attach, and it's not just holding on, with legs. They've got those mouth parts that insert, and then they're even able to exude an adhesive. So they're not just locked in with their serrated mouth parts, but they've got that extra bit of glue that keeps them from moving once they've found the meal that they've been hoping for. So yeah, I'll have to make that that's it. And actually, in terms of barriers to outdoor education, ticks do come up frequently too. They haven't outranked snakes and spiders yet, but maybe it's just time to do another survey. All right, folks. I don't know if anybody else has anything for the good of the group. If not, we'll knock off a little bit early tonight. I actually have some more reading to do. I wanted to review one of the chapters and We Took to the Woods. So I'm going to hit the books. Everybody, really appreciate your time. Appreciate you tuning in. Be safe and be well the rest of the week. And we'll be back next week with Allison and Tales from Colorado. So have a good one, everybody. Take care.
Pam.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Pam.
Pam.
Good night.
Thanks,
Bye,
Pam.
Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Oh, look, Chris, you've got witch hazels. Love it.
Yes, I drew witch hazel for you.
Fantastic.